Alrighty, boys and girls, this is the Chapter 4 mid-chapter test review. It's an interactive video. What I want you to do is I want you to pause the video, write down the questions that you see here, try and work them out to the best of your abilities, and then once you think you have the answers, press play. I'll go over the answers with you. You can see if you're right or wrong, and if you've made a mistake, you can see how to do it the right way. If you can do everything in this video, you should be all set for the test. So go ahead and pause it and try these out. Okay, so welcome back. Hopefully you got them all. In order to turn fractions into decimals, all you're going to do is you're going to divide with your calculator, top number divided by bottom number. If it's negative, your answer is negative. If it's positive, your answer is positive. If you have a mixed number, you can divide the fraction, make it into a decimal, and then put the whole number in front of it. Or you can turn this into an improper fraction and then just divide, and that might be easier for some of you. So let's go ahead and check this out. First of all, we've got negative 3/5. So in our calculator, 3 divided by 5, we've got 0.6. Since this was negative, our answer is negative. Now, letter B, we could do 1 divided by 4, which is 0.25, and then just put a 3 in front of it because we have a whole number 3. But if you want to, we could also make it into an improper fraction and do it that way. So instead of doing this extra step, if we do it here, 4 times 3 is 12. 12 plus 1 is 13. So we're going to rewrite this as 13 over 4. Now, when we put that in our calculator, 13 divided by 4, we get 3.25, which is the answer we got this way. It doesn't matter to me which method you use. Both of them are the same. This one right here, we have negative 5/11. So we're going to type right in 5 divided by 11. We end up getting this right here, 0.454545. Since the 45 is repeating, we're going to use bar notation there. So we write 0.45, bar notation over the 4 and the 5. And since this is negative, our answer is negative. For letter D, we've got 9 5/9. 9 times 9 is 81, and 81 plus 5 is 86. So we now have 86 over 9. So we put this in our calculator, 86 divided by 9. We end up with 9.555, keeps on going, we have bar notation. So we put a bar over the first digit or digits that repeat, and that's what your answer should look like. So next we are going to do turning decimals into fractions and mixed numbers. Let me get some problems up here. All right, boys and girls, there's 3 problems for turning decimals into fractions and mixed numbers. So go ahead and do that. Pause the video, do the problems, and then unpause it when you're ready. All right, so here we go. So to turn decimals into fractions and mixed numbers, first of all, you have to know the names of the place values. If you don't know them, they're pretty much impossible. So these are the place values. Obviously, this is where the ones digits go. There's the decimal point. Now the numbers after that decimal point, they have names. This is the 10th place, this is the 100th place, and this is the 1000th place. Now, when you want to change these into fractions, all you do is you say them properly and you write it down just how you say it. For example, this is negative 3/10. It's 3/10 because the 3 is in the 10th position. So, negative 3/10. Can't reduce it, so we're done. For this one, 65 hundredths. It's 65 hundredths because the last digit is in the 100th position. So we write down 65 hundredths. Now, we're not done yet because we actually can reduce this. Both of these numbers, since they end in 0 and 5, I know I can divide it by 5. 65 divided by 5 is 13, and 100 divided by 5 is 20. And there's our answer, 13/20. Now this one here, if you have a whole number and then a decimal, you say the number and the decimal point, you say the word and. So the proper way to say this is 3 and 28 hundredths, because 8's in the 100th place. So we'd say 3 and 28 hundredths, just like how we say it. Now I can reduce these as well. I can divide 28 and 100 both by 4. So whole number stays the same. 28 divided by 4 is 7. 100 divided by 4 is 25. So the answer, 3 and 7/25. So the next problems that we're going to do are ordering from greatest to least. So let me get some problems up here. Okay, so here's some problems, and actually we'll order this from least to greatest. I believe that's what your book used, and that's what most of your test questions are going to be like, but definitely make sure you read it. If it says greatest to least, do that. If it says least to greatest, do that. On the test, I'll have least to greatest. So, go ahead and write down these problems, and pause the video while you're doing it. Once you have them done, press play. Alright, so here we go. In order to solve these problems, what I recommend is turning everything into decimals and then putting the decimals in order. You could turn them all into percents, you could turn them all into fractions, but I think that turning them all into fractions especially, it might be a little bit more difficult or a little more time consuming for some of you. If you turn them all into decimals, the calculator does the hard work. It's a lot easier to do. So, 0.24, it's already a decimal, remains 0.24. 25%. You can either remember to do the Beyonce to the left and make it 0.25, or remember that a percent symbol means that the number is over 100, and 25 divided by 100 would be 0.25. Either way, you get the same thing. 2/9, we just type that in our calculator. We have 2 divided by 9. We end up with 0.22222, so we got bar notation there. So we're going to write 0.2 bar notation over the 2. Now we're going from least to greatest. So what we want to do is we want to look at each one of them and look at the same place values. In the ones place, I have a 0 here, 0 here, 0 here. So I look at the 10th place. 2, 2, and 2. That still doesn't help me put it in order. So I look at the 100th place. I have a 4 here, a 5 here. Here I don't have anything. Now if it was a terminating decimal, you would just add a 0. But since we've got bar notation here, just like we saw in our calculator, the next number is going to be a 2. Forever. So we can just fill another 2 in there. So now in the 100th place, I've got a 4, 5, and 2, and that helps us put it in order. So, 2 is the smallest, so this is going to be the least. 4 is the next one. That's going to be our second number. And 5 is the largest, so that's in third place. I put this here so it helps me to remember what goes where when I write my final answer. Now for your final answer, you can't just put 1, 2, and 3 and have it in the order like this. You actually have to write these original numbers, these original fractions, percents, whatever, in the order, the correct order. So the least one, number 1, is going to be 2/9. The next one, our number 2 position, is 0.24. And the greatest was 25%. Also, I want you to see, by me writing it like this and doing the work right underneath the problem, putting the numbers there, it made it a lot easier for me to put this in order. So there's our final answer. Now, for this one here, we have negative numbers. Now remember, negative numbers, it's a little bit different than positive. Remember, there's our number line. Positive numbers, you go like normal. Negative numbers, it's like a mirror image. Now remember, everything to the right is greater, and everything to the left is less. So whatever's to the right is greater than the thing to the left. So -2 greater than -3. -1 greater than -2. 0 is greater than -2. 2 is greater than -1, and so on. So, if you can figure that out in your head and that makes sense to you, great, just put them in the right order from the get-go. If you can't, and this is confusing you, then do it like this, pretend like the negative signs aren't there, do it like this, like you normally would, and then whatever order you get, flip it, reverse it once you're done. Doesn't matter to me which method you use. So, we got to turn these into decimals. This one already is a decimal, 0.32. This one right here, I've got 3 divided by 9, so I get 0.3 bar notation. Remember, it's negative, 0.3 bar notation. And right here, that's already a decimal too, -0.03. So, I compare just like I did over here. They're all negative. Ones place, 0, 0, 0. Tenths place, a 3, and a 0. Now, if these were positive, that would make this the least one, but it's negative, so it's flipped. So that's actually the greatest. Now I look over here. In the 100th place, I've got a 2. Here I have nothing, but again, that's bar notation. So I'm going to add a 3. If it was a terminating decimal, I'd just add a 0, but since it's bar notation, add a 3. So I've got 2, and then I've got 3. Well, If these were positive, this would obviously be the greatest, but it's negative, so it's reversed, so that makes this the least, and this is my number 2 position 1. Now I just write it back in the using the original numbers. So my number 1 position is negative 3/9. My number 2 position, negative 0.32. And my number 3 position, the greatest, is negative 0.03. And that's ordering from least to greatest. This is Chapter 4, Section 2, if you need to check the videos on that. Alright, so the next thing we're going to move on to is adding and subtracting like fractions. So let me get a bunch of questions up there for you to practice. Alright, so here's some questions right here. Go ahead and pause the video, write them down, and do your best on it. We've got 1/4 plus 2/4, negative 3/8 plus 1/8, negative 2/4 plus negative 1/4, 1/5 plus negative 1/5, 6/8 minus 2/8, negative 3/7 minus 2/7, and negative 10/11 minus negative 6/11. Go ahead and pause them, press play when you got them done. Okay, so here we go. So 1/4 and 2/4 is how many fourths? 3/4. And we can't reduce it, so we're done. Negative 3/8 plus 1/8. Well, denominator is 8, and negative 3 plus 1 is going to be negative 2. Now, if you don't know how to do this in the calculator, first you hit the number. In this case, it's 3. Then you make it negative, and your calculator says negative 3. Then you add the 1 to it, and we get negative 2. Now, we're still not done here. We had negative 2/8. The reason why we're not done is because we can simplify. We can reduce this. They're both even numbers. 2 goes into 2 one time, and 2 goes into 8 4 times. Since it was negative here, it's negative here. That's our final answer. If you put this on a test, I'm sorry, it'd be wrong. It has to be reduced. Right here, we have negative 2/4 plus negative 1/4. So we know it's going to be over 4. Negative 2 plus negative 1, that's 3 negatives total, so we have negative 3/4. Right here, 1/5 plus negative 1/5. This is additive inverse, so equals 0. The reason why is because 1 plus negative 1 is 0. If you have 0 in the numerator, 0 is your answer. Right here, 6/8 minus 2/8, well, that's going to be 4/8. Both of these are divisible by 4, so I can divide 4 into them and reduce that. 4 goes into 4 once, 4 goes into 8 twice, so I get 1/2. Right here, I have negative 3/7 minus 2/7. My answer is over 7, and negative 3 minus 2, that's going to be negative 5. Right here, negative 10/11 minus negative 6/11. So my answer is going to be over 11. I've got negative 10 minus negative 6. Well, if you did keep change, this would be negative 10 plus positive 6. So the answer is actually going to be negative 4/11. Let me show you how that looks on a calculator. So on the calculator, you're going to type in 10, but it's negative. So touch that button right there, and now we have negative 10 minus negative 6. So first we hit 6, make it negative, equals, and we get negative 4. All right, so we're going to do some more fractions, but this time we're going to do stuff that has unlike denominators, unlike fractions. So let me get some questions there for you. All right, so there's 3 questions. Go ahead and pause the video, write them down, do them, and once you have them done, come on back and I'll show you what happens with them. All right, so the first one, we've got 1/5 plus 2/10. So before we do anything, we have to have common denominators. So look at the bigger denominator, then look at the smaller one. You say, okay, can I divide this bigger one by the smaller one? Does it go in there without a remainder? Well, 5 goes into 10 evenly, no remainder, so that means our common denominator is going to be 10. So I'm going to have something over 10 plus something over 10.